Do you like movies and games also? Listen, so much more they all know. Lotus and friends, welcome to Corrective Consciousness.
Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 94, the podcast about our lives and love of pop culture. I am your host, OldManStompy, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And Dracologist.
Nice. Welcome back, Dracologist.
Welcome back.
Good to...
Always welcomed.
It's good to have you both. Usually welcomed. So, Vice could not be here this week. I'm so depressed by this news.
I think you sabotaged... Did you sabotage something of his that he couldn't come?
I refuse to acknowledge that on the grounds that it may incriminate me.
No comments.
Last week we basically openly plotted for like Pyro's demise, and he hasn't been on this week. So
Yeah.
you know, get in line if you're.
We did not sabotage Vice.
I wasn't really keeping track of the number. I do not recall.
Better.
Okay, so Dracologist, why don't you go ahead and get us started? What were you up to this week? That
I actually started to... basically, I just have a bunch of games now that if I want to talk about. If anyone want to listen to me talking about games, then talk and games.
About games. This is a wrestling podcast. I don't know. No,
you didn't body slam anyone, so no, it's not about wrestling. Anyway, Steam came out with two recently games that has been very interesting to me. One is Amid Evil, which is very much like someone mixed Hex and Quake and Painkiller into a single game.
Goddamn.
That's extremely high praise.
Yeah.
Yes. Like when your first reaction to a game is that you average running speed is like a locomotion, high speed locomotion, then yeah, something is being done right.
Yeah, that'd be Painkiller, all right.
No, Painkiller was not actually very fast on land speed. Doom Quake was.
Yeah, Doom was blazingly fast. Yeah, Quake was also blazingly fast. I just remember Painkiller being high octane because there's like thousands of enemies everywhere.
This doesn't have too much enemies, but it does take a little bit of Painkiller. You know how in Painkiller you collect souls?
Yeah.
They actually made something very clever. They actually mixed the Tome of Power from Heretic with the soul mechanics from Painkiller.
So with the Tome of Power, it's been a long time. The Tome of Power was an inventory item in Heretic that just leveled up your weapon by one level.
No, the Tome of Power, what did it is temporarily increase the firepower of your weapon.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So like your three-way shot turns into a five-way shot and that kind of thing.
It's pretty much basically an alt fire or temporarily.
Yeah, it was temporary, but it was sweet while it lasted.
No, it basically does the same in here, but you collect the killed enemy souls, and you basically engage a much more powerful weapon mode.
Okay.
Also, they actually did something clever it doesn't when you accumulate enough souls, you don't actually activate it automatically, but you have to fire the weapon in order to trigger it.
Well, that's good because otherwise, what if you kill the last enemy and then you just have nothing to do with this? So it's better that it's an activated ability.
Yeah, the problem comes when you have that soul power ready and you have to shoot a button.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty rad because one of the you start with like magic stuff with shoot magic balls. You have a sword that shoots like shockwaves. One of the weapon it was basically the description was very amusing. It said it basically draw snacks of entire planets from the space and time, shrinks them down, and use them as ammo.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Like, there's a couple things pretty ridiculous about that. Like, if you shrink down a planet and use it as ammo, then you will hurt, maybe kill whatever you're attacking, but meanwhile you're destroying the entire population of that planet.
Well, like most planets in the universe are uninhabited unless that's like a conceit of the game.
Yeah, let's hope that's one of the ones you got. Yeah.
No, it's very Hexen-like, so it's just evil monsters. But yeah, it's basically a rocket launcher. It hits very hard.
Oh, and when you said the game's Hexen-like, is there like an overworld where you like unlock the other levels or anything?
The world system is very much like Quake. Like the difficulty settings and the episode setting is very Quake-like.
Okay.
In fact, they basically ripping off the whole difficulty settings where you have the easy, medium, hard portals.
Okay.
And getting like for example, getting through the medium is already very hard because you have to jump over a rather large ditch.
Yeah.
And what was amusing that, about the rocket launcher weapon, what was funny that one of the it generates a random planetary texture for every projectile. So every time you throw the weapon or fire the weapon, it has a different projectile in among.
That's actually clever. So you're not just firing like a clone of the planet you just attacked.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great though. I mean, like that's so unnecessary and superfluous, but they put in the effort to make it feel like you're not just shooting a gun that happens to be a planet.
Yeah.
Here's the funny part. One of the projectiles can I think there is a by chance sort of thing that looks like Earth, and if you fire it, it basically sends up the "Oops, you destroyed Earth."
Nice.
Does it end the game, or is it just like really?
Yeah, that'd be hilarious. You just like
No. You just go. It just happens, and it's just a gag.
just
but
mentions
it's funny.
it, 'cause, like-
it even gets us
because
It's like
no, just go ahead.
it's just an achievement. It's just an achievement. It's like in the remake of Day of the Tentacles. If you wait enough with the hoagie eats a hoagie, and gives you an achievement, like it's cannibalism. Dude.
Nice.
So,
no, I was just
the hero of this game is came from Drakengard. Like you are the protagonist, but man, are you a fucking mass murderer?
Yeah, right.
No, you. I'm fairly sure this is just jape in the game.
Mm-hmm.
But you do murder a lot of things, but those things are ugly and want to kill you first. So
No, because
you are validated in that regard.
Because I was just reminded of Space Quest. I think it was 4. In Space Quest 4, there's a part toward the end of the game where you get into this supercomputer on a space station, and there's all sorts of files on it. You're supposed to read a file and find some information, but one of the files, it's not really a file, but one of the programs in this folder is Space Quest 4. And if you put Space Quest 4 into the trash, then it force quits the game, which is kind of amazing. Also a dick move if you didn't see that coming.
So it's also reminiscent of what is it, Nier Automata, one of the joke endings where you can basically just remove your own CPU and there's nothing stopping you from doing it. There's no prompt. You just immediately die and the game ends.
Oops. Anyway, the whole planet snagging thing kind of reminds me of the Necrons from Warhammer 40k. They have two weapons that one of the special super weapon is basically a planetarium above the entire Milky Way galaxy. It's where you pop a star on that planetarium, it destroys the referred star in the real world.
Wow.
Brutal.
The other weapon is even more insane. It basically takes an entire star and shrinks it down to a top of a spire as a weapon. Basically, entire star compressed into a small orb that can be used as a weapon. Basically, just make a pinhole on the force field, containment force field, and the massive beam of plasma comes out, burning everything in its path.
Condensing a star to that degree would be like a miniature Big Bang. You should never do that.
I mean,
Necrons.
it would make in real physics, it would make a black hole, right? That's how black holes are made.
Necron technology is very odd. It's borderline magic and technology.
Well, that's the old quote, right? Any sufficiently advanced science is indistinguishable from magic. And when you reach the point of something like Warhammer, where you're something that inhabits interdimensional voids would be indistinguishable from a Cthulhu, even if it had a physical basis that you could explain. It would be pointless to us.
I mean, even though this is a lot more crude, I just think of Rick and Morty because now it's a meme. We have to be really smart to understand Rick and Morty. But there were the people who really defended it that way at first. It's a science show, and no, it's just a bunch of weird magic bullshit that it's I have a button that does whatever I want. It's magic that they just call it science at that point.
No, well, the basic thing was that the Necrons' overlords were called the Catan or Satan, which were very much godlike beings that they could snap a finger and make faster than light travel ships.
Nice.
Anyway, moving on. The other game I picked up was Apocryph. That game is a little more clunkier. You can see I pretty much see the seams on the development, but it has a little bit of heart that I enjoy. The weapons are nice, if a little they lack the certain impact I want. In Amid's Evil, one of the favorite weapon I have is a Morning Star that shoots these sort of crystal shards, and they do pretty much the overpowered version of the stake gun from Painkiller. Like enemies not just like when you pin someone to the wall, they not like hit someone with it. They not just flop down or usually only pin to the wall. When they actually propel across the entire map before hitting a wall.
Oh damn! So it's like it's like even stronger than like the Half-Life crossbow, where you're just like sticking people to anything you want.
Yeah, Painkiller stake gun was pretty similar, but this time enemies fly across the entire corridor before hitting the wall.
That's ludicrous. So like, so you could just fire and forget, and then advance in the level, and eventually come across the guy you've shot a while back. You're like, oh, there he is.
It's not homing. You have to aim a little bit.
Well, no. But like when you hit somebody, they just go off, and like they're gonna hit a wall some point, and you might not even see the wall at that point. So eventually you'll walk forward on the map and find them.
General, you find
like, oh, so that's where I stuck you.
Yeah, so like that's never something that you encountered in like original old school shooters. It just wouldn't happen because they wouldn't track the level that much due to like memory or like
they would like despawn or something.
So like to run into a guy like literally like 5 or 10 minutes later in the level and just think like, man, I really fucked that guy up.
Yeah, like is that what weird level design? Like oh wait, that was me like a minute ago.
I did this.
Generally, yes. Like, they don't fly across that much because, like, you're fighting in this small arena-like style.
Oh, so fair enough.
You rarely propel them across far away, but you generally see them hanging on the walls, like, stop hanging around.
It's still very satisfying.
No loitering.
Oh, we even write the Steam achievement names for them.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. Anyway, Apocryph is pretty nice. It has a few clever tricks on its sleeve, although it needs a lot of polishing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this is a green light game or an early access game?
It's a green light game, yes. Mm-hmm. But you know that green light doesn't exist anymore. They managed to actually slip through successfully.
Awesome.
It's nice. I also started to play with a little bit of Copykitty, which was nice.
Oh, okay, yeah.
What was that one?
It had a bit of a difficulty spike.
What was that one called?
Copykitty.
Okay.
Like basically copycat, but not cat and kitty.
Yeah, kitty instead.
It's cute. It's a little platformer game that uses the technology that you can pick up various attacks and use them individually or combine them into absolutely insane attacks.
So it's like kind of like Kirby, but you're a cat?
It's like a Contra Kirby, kind of.
Mm. Well, you're not eating enemies, but you're just killing them and picking up their left behind ammunition, basically.
So like Mega Man-ish?
Yeah, as I recall, it has like
an
extensive...
Sort of. Like, it has a very strong Mega Man vein in it.
Okay.
I think.
It has like a really extensive like level editor and like a lot of user content, if I recall, or at least like when it came out as it was progressing through the process of going through Steam. I remember an old Let's Player that I watched a few years ago, like doing Copykitty as just like a something that he would do like in between Let's Plays because there was just so much like content for it in the fan communities.
Nice.
Oh. Well, I don't know. I still have the campaign that I'm still working on.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a regular single player campaign now, but it did look like a lot of like mindless fun.
It's a bit difficult though. Like there are a few bosses that are very obnoxious with their attack patterns.
Actually, like the concept reminds me of like Bangai-O Treasures, like the version of it for DS, like the old Treasure game, because it was just like a pack of levels almost. Like you could do them in more or less any order, and like they were clearly constructed from assets from like the older Bangai-O game for the Dreamcast. Like Copykitty kind of reminds me of that spirit. Vice would know what I'm talking about. Why isn't he here right now?
I know that.
The one time I need Vice.
For Bangai-O. That was like an older conversation we had where like we were trying to discuss Assassin's Creed and none of us really had played any of them. And then later in the conversation, I think I brought up Resonance of Fate, and everyone, like Vice and Pyro, were like, "Oh yeah, okay, I know Resonance of Fate." It's like, really? This is
like
the thing?
What? He had never played Assassin's Creed, but we've all played that stupid game.
Yeah, that game that no one else has played.
From 150 parts at the same time.
Yes.
You played Resonance of Fate? Daddy does not approve.
I platinumed Resonance of Fate.
Crazy game.
That's alright.
I think the only problem was with that game it was a little bit drawn out, or what?
It was.
Like the combat was a little bit like you couldn't do. But if you had encounters with a group of small enemies, you could not clear them out quickly. You have to deal with them individually, which is
there was no Earthbound like let's just deal with this mechanic.
not even Earthbound, but you like when you encounter a bunch of weak enemies, you cast the spell that hits everyone and clears the
yeah, you could never do that with Resonance of Fate. You had to target like individuals, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like the first time I started playing the game for the first couple of hours, like it was great because you're just like flipping around and shooting everybody in bullet time. But really, when you realize that you have to do this like every fucking fight, for like 50 hours, it's like,
well, it's also funny though when you do it against a boss because like. Just think about it in real life. You just keep running around in circles and flipping around.
Just like back and forth.
It's like, what are you doing?
And like you're in bullet time, so he's like seeing this in real time while you guys are like flipping back and forth and just taking turns because it's a turn-based combat.
Yeah, but you keep doing it, so like you're just endlessly flipping. It's like, why would you keep flipping? Like I think they made fun of that in Project Cross Zone 2, where I think I forgot if I think Vachiron was talking to like maybe Dante or something from Devil May Cry. He was like, "Oh, nice gunplay, but like you could use some more flips." It's like, what? I don't know if it was Dante, but it was somebody. It was just
that game had a lot of great like callbacks.
It's a game mechanic. Shut up.
Yeah, I know. It's like leave me alone.
What I asked was, I do remember playing a little bit of Psycho Circus. I digged up an old CD of mine.
Nice.
It's a classic Serious Sam style horde shooter with the Todd McFarlane Kiss game printed on it.
That's right.
If I ever get to streaming, I'm going to show you guys some of those because it's fun. I actually found the soundtrack, not soundtrack, but basically the music has been, how to say, stitched together properly because it works in a special way. It's like the music has 3 sort of intensities and it's basically made from various patterns. So it's it's not a single song or two multiple songs going in multiple channels.
Okay.
So it's like purely diegetic music.
What?
Purely diegetic music.
Well, it's nice and metal-y, so
nice.
If you like rock and roll while murdering ugly monsters, then it's for you. Basically, one of the enemies is a spider clown.
That's 2 Primal Fears.
Yes, I actually have a picture of it somewhere.
Yeah, I think you showed me at one point. It's just like, nope.
Well, and the listeners of our podcast will never see it. Or you can post it in the links in the comments.
Like the next like 30 seconds of the podcast are like, hold on, let me bring the picture up. And both OldManStompy and I, oh wow, that's some picture. Wow, cool. And just like
we actually
nothing comes of it.
No, really, the picture is there.
We have done this once or twice. Maybe if we like encode it in the spectrum of the waveform of the podcast.
Yeah,
people can do.
I mean, I can make it work on YouTube, but like for SoundCloud, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, give Lotus a picture, and when the podcast goes up, he can please.
On SoundCloud, I'll just be like, at whatever time we're at on our track, Google image search this URL now. Perfect, seamless.
Well, I mean, you could just post it as a link on the comment on the SoundCloud page.
Nah, that's too hard.
That's too much effort. Who comments on the SoundCloud page? I don't listen to Vice.
General Ledger, I know, comments on the SoundCloud page.
Oh, does he? I should go check that out.
Yeah.
Anyway, for last, I think I want to mention that I found Severance, and I'm hoping to get that game working because it was one of my favorite games.
Severance,
Blade of Darkness.
Okay.
It's a surprisingly difficult hack and slash fantasy game. It kind of reminds me of Dark Souls in a few accents. That even small enemies can ruin your day, and hitting is very, very difficult. Like you know how in Dark Souls when you take an Estus Flux, you have to wait for the animation to finish?
Yeah.
Right.
In here, you can actually have your potion knocked out of your hand.
That's ridiculous.
And then you have to hurry to pick it up before it despawns.
That is such a pain in the ass.
Entity. Also, I think the problem with the game that you can pick up various kind of food items to heal you a little bit, but when you have an apple that heals you 5 health points and you have 10,500 health points, that's a drop in the ocean. On the other hand, the combat is nice and meaty. You have this stamina based combat system, like in Dark Souls. Only difference is that when you lock onto an enemy and to do the circle strafe things, you can also do various directional attacks, which is important in order to circumvent blocking and stuff.
So it's almost like Eternal Darkness. You can target arms or the head or whatever.
No. You target one enemy of various types. But what you can do is when you hit when you input a specific code, you can perform a character or a weapon.
Okay.
Weapon special attack. Like one of the characters who specializes in long staffs has basically it's her only special attack, but it's the possibly the best. Basically, this whirling is a front attack which hits enemies multiple times very very hard.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also input a weapons attack, which is basically it hits very hard, and the move can it can be a very fancy move that hits multiple times. Like for example, with a sight you spin around two times, and the damage done is more than you would do with an average attack.
Sure.
And it's interesting because it has a sort of this Conan the Barbarian style of aesthetics to it, but the traps are from Indiana Jones, and the story is for some reason is Zoroastrian. Like you basically picking up stories of old Zoroastrian myth.
Huh.
And the Epinomous Blade of Darkness, when you acquire it the proper way, it's actually pretty powerful. It's kind of kick-ass.
Nice.
And it looks very very nice. If there would be a possibility to ask, there is a channel who forge various weapons, take video game weapons and make it into a real forged weapon. You heard of those, or you see any of those?
I'm not sure.
They actually made the Soul Reaver, Link's Sword, Rebellion from Devil May Cry.
I might have heard of this actually.
Okay, this is there's like a video game blacksmith. I'm trying to remember if it's the same person.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Like it may be the same person, but I don't remember what he's called.
They even made the Dragon Slayer from Berserk.
That's pretty rad. That's like stupidly big and no one could wield it.
Yes, and they've even made the Full Moon Sword from Dark Souls.
Oh,
or what was that name?
The Moonlight Blade.
Yes, the giant broadsword or something.
Oh, from
I'm not sure if this is I'm not sure if this is the same group, but I watched them do the Scissor Blade from Kill la Kill.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Okay, so yeah,
those are the guys.
Yeah, I have to. It's very impressive. It's interesting.
They
craftsmanship.
actually made a chain sword from Warhammer 40k, which was really really nice. Although it's a little bit difficult to make it proper because a Warhammer 40 game's engine is much more powerful and much more smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So that's at least can be done with current technology. But anyway, I would like to see them actually do the sword from Severance Blade of Darkness because that thing is gorgeous looking.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool.
I think that's it for now.
Awesome.
All
Sounds
right.
like you had a pretty nice few weeks since the last time you were here. We were happy to hear about some of these games. We encourage our viewers to go check them out, our listeners.
Yeah, for sure.
Please.
So Lotus, how are you? How are you this last week?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Pretty good.
All right. So, what were you doing?
That's it. That's
my week. No, okay. So, yeah, I did some more streaming. I actually finished Stonekeep: Bones of the Ancestors, which that payoff was something else, man. That clapping, but it was ridiculous, man. Cause like where I had left off last time was the Hall of Shadow. So as a reminder, there was dungeon, stables, and then Hall of whatever, Hall of Air, Hall of Water, Hall of Fire, and now Hall of Shadow. Hall of Shadow was actually difficult because a lot of the enemies were like ghosts or phantoms, and physical attacks don't work on them, so I had to cast spells. The problem is they often cast spells as well, and you take a little bit to do an animation, like waving your hand when you cast a spell, so I have to throw something at them and quickly run to the side or something so I don't get just destroyed by these things. They were actually posing a challenge. Mm-hmm. And there was kind of flavor text for one of the first times. They really kept pushing it. Like, I found a bunch of notes that said, like, oh, they're taking over, we're all dying, and we can't fight them. Like, their physical attacks are useless, and they kind of really kept pushing this, oh man, it's getting intimidating.
Wow.
And I'm like,
is that like the only flavor text you've seen in the game so far? Besides the end of level stuff?
Well, other than, like NPCs telling me, oh, that we're being subjugated by whatever. That's the only, like, note flavor text I think I found. What fascinated me, though, was I told you before, in the Hall of Water, there was that skeleton boss who appeared several times and was like, you better leave, and he disappears, and that happens like 3 times. And one of the times he says, we're under the negative effects of the Fetter Stone. I couldn't believe this, because they didn't come back to that at all. But in the Hall of Shadow, I actually found the Fetter Stone. I was like,
whoa.
Yo, honestly, yeah, like, I did not expect that. and it gave me infinite magic. So
yes.
like I barely used magic in the playthrough, so it's not like I was ever low on it, but now I really had free reign to just throw fireballs everywhere, and considering that fireballs insta-kill the skeleton enemies, I actually was having a much better time moving around. What was also...
Yeah, I wanted to say...
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to say that like, here's infinite mana for a spell system that is very, very clunky.
No kidding. Thanks. Yeah, wave the remote and see what happens. What was funny, though, was in the Hall of Fire, I had mentioned there was this setup for a dragon where the payoff didn't happen, and I was wondering, was there supposed to be no dragon and it comes later, in which case it's weird to give me this big room of nothing? Or should there maybe have been a dragon, but then there just wasn't? And it looks like there just wasn't, because I never found the dragon.
I think I know what might happen here right now. You know when you entered that room there was 2 dwarves in there?
Yeah.
They might have killed the dragon before you get there.
It's possible, but I doubt it. I really do.
They typed in, yes, would you like to try to kill the dragon, into the text prompt.
Yeah, perfect. Other than that, after I got through, like, the Fetterstone was actually a pretty sweet item. Now, here's something I did not describe about the spell system, is that when you look at a spell, you can re-look up how to cast them. Thank God, because there's like a million spells. They tell you, like, there's power level and there's experience. Like, when you use a spell, the experience bar goes up a little bit, and I guess ultimately you can raise power. And I never really cared, because the spells did enough, and I prefer physical attacks anyway, because spellcasting in the game is clunky as hell. So, I got toward the end of the Hall of Shadow, and there was a boss called the Wizard. I don't know who the hell he was, but alright. And he cast, I'm assuming, every element. He threw like 2 different elemental types of spells at me, because usually enemies cast exactly 1 type of spell, ever. I mean, like, maybe different models of this, or maybe the same model, but 2 different enemies, like 2 ghosts. One might cast a water spell, one might cast a fire spell, but each of them will only cast that 1 spell. This guy cast multiple spells, so I'm like, oh, okay. So I dodged a spell, and then I hit him with my stick, and you can chain hit enemies forever, so that was that fight. But when
So he beat you at Super Mario Bros. 3? Because he's the wizard?
Oh, yes. Yeah, he used the whistle within the whistle area. Blew my mind, man. Alright, so no, I killed the wizard, and then it said something like, oh yeah, he dropped the Sphere of the Spellmaster. And I was like, that sounds amazing, but what is that, swag? And someone in the stream actually noticed that all my spells were now at max power. I was like, oh shit. So that was actually kind of cool. Like, believe it or not, I was finally getting feel-good, just feel-good times from Stonekeep, Bones of the Ancestors. Like, oh, I actually feel like I accomplished something. Okay. And then I made it to the end of the Hall of Shadow. Now, I'm wondering, is this the end of the game? Was the Wizard the final boss? Or do we keep going? Is there like a final area? Because the reason I figured that was the end is that, number 1, my spell completion was like 92%. But number 2, if you go to the load game and go to the menu where you can choose a level, the 6 levels kind of fill up the screen. So, like, is Hall of Shadow the end then?
Darkness Realm.
Yeah, so I beat the Hall of Shadow. It's like, oh, you found the exit. I'm like, oh, okay. And then it loads up Darkness Realm. So everything is like, it's like the end of Eternal Ring, because that's easily relatable. Like the ground is like,
everybody's played these games. We all get these references.
Yeah, Resonance of Fate, Eternal Ring. Like, get on my level. So the ground is all like craggy with like little lava looking cracks going all around it, and there's no map. You never have to find a map. You always just have a map. But this time there's no map, and I'm like, oh, this feels like final boss territory. Now the first things I see are basic enemies. There's 2 skeletons and there's 2 little bat things. Skeletons die in like 3 hits. With Fireball, 1 hit. And the bats are really annoying. They fly around, and they're difficult to hit, and they bite you like 3 times. It's really frustrating. But if you kill them, it's only 1 hit, and they drop health. But it's like
They also look incredibly disturbing.
They kind of are. But it was like the final boss of Golden Axe. Or Golden Axe 2, maybe. Like, the moment I kill these things, they respawn. Like, instantly. Like, while their animation is... Like, their disappear animation is playing, the same animation plays to spawn new ones in, so I'm not getting rid of these things. Which is actually kind of good, because like I said, the bats will drop health. So that's something. But it's really annoying because bats are fast. So I'm like, okay, what am I doing here? And a little behind the bats, I see a new enemy type I've never seen before. And I get a name, and it's Cull Crumb. And I'm like, wait a fucking minute. Because in the original Stonekeep, this is established in like level 1 who the final boss is going to be. And he's the villain throughout the entire game. Kulkum. Khull. Khuum. Kulkum. Voiced by Tim Curry, by the way. And so now I see Cull Crumb. Kull. Krum. So is this a different character, or did they botch the spelling, or what? I don't know. Doesn't matter. So when I first see him, I'm like, oh god. So I try running away. But, you know, I gotta fight this guy, and he's not really attacking me. He looks like he has a sword, so maybe he'll get into my face or something. So eventually I'm like, okay, maybe I'll go for him. So I get way out of the enemy's range, and if the enemies don't see you, they're kind of not gonna bother. So I got out of their range, and they just kind of didn't bother me anymore. That was it. The enemies were just gone. And Cull Crumb was kind of walking away. He's just wandering aimlessly. So I'm throwing a couple spells at him, and they don't do anything. Turns out they're just the wrong element. What always seems to work is the throwing a rock spell. Like, you're hitting a dude with a rock. Like, that's gonna hurt. So
a really big rock, not at that.
Yeah, it's a big one.
That's what Quest 64 taught me. Just throw a lot of rocks at something.
Progressively bigger rocks that do the same damage, but just cover a wider area. So I throw a big rock at Cull Crumb as he's walking away, and that's the fight. Like, I just keep throwing rocks at him, and he doesn't do anything. And then I kill him, and then I beat the game. And there's the first voice acting where it's like, you have saved the ancestors or whatever, and like just this scrolling text with a voice reading it out loud, and then the credits play while my character just throws little sparkles on loop, and then the credits loop. Yep.
You did it.
I sure did.
I like that your character's new life is to being a magical fountain or something.
Yeah, it was dumb as shit. What was funny though is that, like, I'm pretty sure I'm the first person on YouTube to have put footage of beating that game, and I think like it's me versus one other person. There was one other person that started uploading at around the same time as I did, probably for the same reason. Like the WiiWare shop just kind of cut off.
Is that person name starts with a V and ends with Ice the Bold?
He wouldn't be caught dead playing that game. Are you kidding me? No, this other guy played it around a similar time I did, so I think I only beat the game before him by like a couple of days. What was kind of funny was that one of my viewers, Dragon Ace, made a title card in commemoration of beating the game for when I would upload it, and the title card was just a screenshot of Dragon Ace's search results for Stonekeep Bones of the Ancestors, and like the only thing that had come up on a basic search was just my videos and a couple of instances of Corrective Consciousness where we talked about it. That was just really funny to me. Like, I'm the only one who cares.
Oh, so that was it.
It was.
So that it was.
Yeah, that's what that was. It was really funny. Like, it was just like, here's how many people care about Stonekeep Bones of the Ancestors. You and no one else. No, this other guy, Rojo Vision, though, obviously cares about it because he's left playing it too. But that just cracked me up. Otherwise, I'll be quicker with my other stuff. I played more Zack and Wiki, more spooky levels. And they're actually they were a really fun time. There was a cool like mad scientist level where I had to make potions which would shrink me or would turn me invisible, so I would avoid detection by automatic kill you obstacles. It was a pretty fun time, although some of that stuff was really hard to figure out. And from what I hear, the boss of Spooky Town is quite difficult, so I'll see how that works. It's making me a little nervous already. Otherwise, I'll mention this quickly because I don't want to go into spoilers of any kind, but OldManStompy, Minty Mitz, and I finally got around for a second round of 999, and we got one of the endings. So we're gonna try going for all the endings, but we got one of them.
I will say that's a good way of describing it, because out of all the endings in that game, that was definitely one of them.
It sure was. Other playthroughs in part are going to be faster now because I can skip through dialogue I've already seen. Now it's going to be a matter of going through paths I haven't gone through before. Also, just more Drakengard 2. I'm on chapter 9 of 12, playthrough 1 of 3, because, you know, the real ending comes about on, you know, subsequent playthroughs. A little different than Drakengard 1, where you just have to go to key levels on other playthroughs. I'll have to play through the whole game again, but this time it'll be New Game Plus. That'll be better. Yeah. The last thing I want to mention is that I mentioned finishing reading the Graveyard book last week. Well, this time I've been reading a book that my brother got me for the holidays, which was a collection of 3 Agatha Christie novels, all of them Hercule Poirot novels. If you don't know who Hercule Poirot is, he's kind of like, he's like a recurring main character. Like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle always wrote Sherlock Holmes. Agatha Christie wrote a bunch of books. Sometimes they were standalone. Like, well, every book stands alone, but sometimes the characters in the book are unique to that book alone. But Hercule Poirot is a recurring character, like the detective who shows up in a bunch of different stories. And he, like, Sherlock Holmes is more hot-blooded than Hercule Poirot is. Hercule is, like, very, like, soft-spoken, polite, and also not English. He's Belgian. So it's just a different take on things. He'll drop French phrases every once in a while. So he's a fun guy to read. And I finally read a classic that I haven't gotten on in years. The Murder on the Orient Express. That's probably Agatha Christie's most famous book. And I can't go into spoilers because, it's a whodunit. But it was a really fun read. Somebody died on a train. There are only such and such people on the train. Who could have possibly pulled this off regarding the fact that we're stranded in a snowdrift, so no one can enter or leave. We know it was somebody on the train, so how is this going to work out? And it's a really interesting way of seeing who's guilty, who's innocent, even people who are telling the truth. They might lie about things that don't necessarily pertain to the case because they don't want to admit certain things about themselves or things like that. It's really cool to see all the mysteries unfold. I believe there was a movie of The Murder on the Orient Express that came out relatively recently, so all the more reason not to spoil it, but that was a sweet book, so now I'm interested in checking out the movie and seeing how it compares.
So, like, old novels like that are really interesting studies on, like, classic mysteries, and there are narrative tropes. I kind of want to bring this back around to something else you talked about. There are, like, specific narrative tropes that relate to writing good mystery stories, that deal with it being internally logically consistent, so that even if the reader didn't do a very good job of figuring out the who done it, it's very satisfying to find out who did, and you feel like you could have figured out if you'd been paying attention to the plot. So these rules, these like narrative tropes, are actually like listed in one of the Zero Escape games. I think it's in Virtue's Last Reward, and it's basically there because, like, as you're reading it, you realize that the game violates like every single one of these rules, and it's still incredibly entertaining.
Oh, that's funny. But anyway, that's my week. So how about you, OldManStompy?
Sure. I'd first like to call out a comment that we got on last week's episode by School Filmer that says, "If we just want to air out some stress, we should sing death metal. I know it works wonders for a certain red panda I know." And so, like, I think Lotus completely missed this reference when it was made. But he's referring to a Sanrio show that was recently released in the U.S. on Netflix called Aggretsuko or Aggretsuko. And if you didn't know that it was actually an official Sanrio show, you'd actually think that it was a parody by Adult Swim of like a real Sanrio show. Like, the plot is that Retsuko is a red panda. She's like a cute little animal, just like a Sanrio character. But instead of being just like a cutesy character, she's just like a 25-year-old office worker whose like life is completely mundane and miserable, like fucking Bartleby the Scrivener or something, and like she takes out the stress by singing karaoke death metal by herself, sometimes even like in the bathroom of her own office, and like people can hear her like screaming out like, death metal lyrics, and they render her, instead of like the Sanrio style, she looks almost like a real feral animal when these scenes are taking place, where she's got like big bug eyes and teeth and claws, like a real like rabid red panda or something.
Nice.
And like it's insane. So
red pandas are not actually not the most intimidating creatures.
Okay, well, Aggretsuko is fucking intimidating when she's in death metal mode.
Well, yeah, but there are people who think that honey badgers are intimidating.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's because of an internet video, not necessarily because of like any any reflection of reality.
Yeah,
there was a movie that had probably started the whole thing, sort of this Lost in Africa style thing.
That might have also been the case. So this show I watched with Minty Mitz and her sisters. And so, like, it feels like it was a show made for people who grew up on the most recent generation of Sanrio and are now, like, disaffected 20-something office workers who just, like, need to know that their life isn't as shitty as they think it is. But, like, the series is so fucking nihilistic. Like, everything that happens to her is completely miserable, and nothing ever really gets resolved except that she just kind of gets over being so sad. It's a show about being an adult and, like, learning to get over like the standard adversities that you face when you have like a job that you don't like and you feel like everything's stacked up against you. And I don't know, some of my friends find it very relaxing, like to know that there's a show that they're not the only ones who are like just stuck in like corporate limbo. You know?
Yeah, I mean that actually could be a thing though, because like oftentimes on social media, I mean there are people who, you know, always post about whatever happens to them, good or bad, but a lot of people try putting on a more positive side to like, no, see, I'm cool or whatever, or maybe they do just have good stuff all the time. So if you see a bunch of people on social media just posting all this cool stuff that's happening because they're not talking about the other stuff, you might think like, how the hell is the rest of the world doing okay? Like, is it just me? So like it can be nice to have reaffirmation.
Yeah, so like that's part of the show. She eventually stops being so secretive about her karaoke session. She finds like other women in the office who are like interested in listening to her sing. And you find out that like even though they don't deal with the exact same things as you, like you're all looking for an outlet and you all have like kind of different problems.
Okay.
And that's sort of the nature of the show. It isn't actually there's one sequence where she kind of like falls in love with another like Red Panda character. But he's like a really shitty boyfriend, like absolutely atrocious. Like not in a like abusive kind of way, just he's like completely negligent and really boring and bland.
Okay.
And they sing like this really saccharine song that sounds like a regular Sanrio song. Because she's got these like rose-colored glasses on that obscure the like how boring this relationship is and how inattentive this guy is to her.
Yeah.
While she's getting like more and more stressed because it's not actually an outlet for her like stress at all. So now she's just twice as stressed with no outlet whatsoever. And so it literally parodies itself because it looks like a standard Sanrio scene, but they highlight the fact that she's on a date and she's wearing like sandals and like her ankles are all like bloody from the sandals like cutting into her heels.
Oof.
Kind of explicit for what you expect from this kind of show. I think it's PG-13. I sent it to my mom. I sent her the trailer, like the name of the show, and I gave her a chance. I sent her the trailer. I was like, you have to watch this. It's a new Sanrio show on Netflix. And she didn't watch the trailer. She just watched an episode of the show. She gave it to my little sister, and my sister, she put headphones on, like Bluetooth headphones on the television, and they were watching the show and like staring at it, and like my mom is just like watching something else on one of the other televisions in the house, and she sees like the rabid Aggretsuko during the death, and she's like, what show did my son tell me to watch?
Nice.
Like, what is this? And actually, she thinks it's very funny. She likes it a lot. I'm glad that didn't backfire on me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, so yes, I like the show a lot. I thought it was made with a lot of heart. So that's my opinion on it. I guess you guys haven't watched it, or Dracologist, maybe you have some opinions?
I never watched it. I just know about it.
Okay. Well, maybe when Minty Mitz comes on the next time, she'll talk a little bit about it. We watched it actually a second time with Lily Sisters because it's so relatable. It's very easy to watch. It's like just they're 10-15 minute episodes. Goes very quickly.
Okay.
Otherwise, I picked up a copy of Persona 5, so I am temporarily replacing Pyro Jack Frost. I was at our local Target and it happened to be on sale for $29.99. They were clearing out a couple of last copies, so I've got that now. I played the first 2 hours or so last night just to make sure I got a little bit under my belt before I came onto the podcast, so I can say that I actually tried to play it. I'm not as serious about Mega 10 games as Pyro is, but I did beat Persona 4, like one of the Persona 2 games, and like a couple of other random like Mega 10 games. So even though they're like tremendously long undertakings, and I tend to have tend to be notorious for having a backlog that's almost as long as Vice's, like I did convince myself to finish a couple of these Persona games.
Sure.
I do like to dedicate the time. Persona 4, I played heavily relying on a guide to max all the social links.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Took me 59 hours to do it, which is a lot shorter than it took for a lot of people who play the game more organically and just explored it. So I'm not like that. Playing it that way is not always all that fun, because it's like 60 hours of.
Well, yeah, it becomes a checklist.
Yeah, it's not grinding in the like the gameplay sense, but it's grinding in the like the life sense.
Yeah, like, well, next I need to do this, and I better be sure not to miss that. So like you're not doing the same thing over and over, but like you're doing chores.
And the game is hard when you play it like that because the dungeons are intended to be attacked like over multiple sessions.
Sure.
And usually when you're like min-maxing like that, you're trying to grind out the dungeons in like 1 or 2 tries, when you're supposed to be chopping away at it a few days at a time. So you wind up having to like make the dungeons really hard for yourself, harder than they would be if you weren't using a guide, which is kind of
ironic.
Yeah.
I don't like. This is why I don't like the personal games that much. Like they have a decent story and decent, decent character, gibbering teenagers who can't stop coughing about their emotions all the time. I know some people are into that. That was sometimes like, okay, stop, close the weeping valve, please, and start manning up and start hitting the monsters. There's where the fun at.
Yeah, and exactly, when you play it like this, you do very little punching of the monsters. In fact, they punch you a lot because you're underprepared.
Yeah, like today's characters I really want. Son, I rocket jumped my way back and forth to school. So no talking, just hitting.
Right. I empathize. People have said before that that's like what's so charming about things like The Legend of Zelda, because Link doesn't spend a lot of time, or Metroid, because like Link and Mario and the rest of the Nintendo characters don't really spend a lot of time angsting over like whether or not what they're doing is like ethical. They just go ahead and beat people up.
Yeah, Link just goes into some guy's house and like throws all his shit around and takes his money.
Well, Samus never had to like. I never know when they gave her the personality. I think Other M was the sort of this.
Mainly Other M, but like you don't get scenes taking up time in the game for this. But Super Metroid is basically a redemption of Metroid 2, where you just commit planetary genocide.
Right. So like apparently this was like the Other M characterization was actually sort of what the creator of Metroid intended for his character to be as, and like there is elements of this in the manga, but it's so unnecessary. Like part of what makes Samus so cool is that she has so much agency, and like take that away because she suddenly has PTSD for exactly one game.
Well, no, that's the thing that gets me. Like, I can buy her having all the emotions and stuff, because, like, who wouldn't? But, like, what kills me is that they, like, that's kind of tied into the power-up system. Like, I haven't played Metroid Other M, but from what I gather, you have your suit. But, like, you have to wait for your superior officer to be like, okay, now you can use this. It's like, do you want me to save the planet or not, you jackass?
You go into the lava area and you start taking heat damage when you could just turn on your Varia suit. You already have it.
Yeah, that's
dumb as shit. You have to let the guy tell you to do it. It's so stupid.
Like, that reminds me of an old Spoony video where he's talking about one of the Ultima games, maybe it was Underworld, where, you know, you're just grabbed by the king and you're thrown into jail for I forgot what reason. But then it's like, wait a minute. Actually, I have a problem. My daughter is being kidnapped by so-and-so, and I need you to go through, like, the hell dungeon to get her back. So, go. And Spoonie's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, do you want me to get the job done? Give me all my cool shit back. Don't send me in with, like, a knife. Like, what is this?
So,
like, I know that kills the game narrative, but it's like, what?
There is a bit of, like, reclaiming moment in Metroid where, like, the character who had been authorizing her power-ups actually, like, I don't want to spoil it, but he's no longer part of the storyline after a certain part of the game. And after a while, she just goes like, oh, I need the space jump. I'm activating it. Do you have anything to say about it? And he can't because he's not in the storyline anymore.
Oh.
But it's like, why didn't you just do that? And he was like he can say anything about it.
Well, that's what pisses me off. If you want to, like, receive praise, then let him say, like, you've upped a rank in the military or something. Like, if you need to space jump, you need the fucking space jump. Like, what are you going to, like, interfere with my mission until I do it the hard way? Like, what is this all about?
I think the problem is with Samus Aran that like her origin story is that she was raised by alien birds.
Yeah, the
Chozo. Like the first thing that she should be she shouldn't be acting entirely human. Like she should be acting according to like. How she was trained by the Chozo.
No, but like I don't even care about that so much as I do like this guy wants her to complete a mission and he's directly interfering with her ability to do so. Like, turn on my fucking suit.
Yeah, the theme of Other M was about parenthood, and so like part of the idea they were trying to convey was about Samus acting as a surrogate mother for the baby Metroid, and about her interacting with this superior who was basically her father figure because she never had a human father. But like it doesn't do this story.
It was just killed.
Well, yeah, she never grew up with a human father. You're correct. But like it doesn't do the story any justice if the characters have to act like complete idiots in like thoroughly illogical ways.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and never overcome that. And like nobody ever points it out to them.
Someone mentioned, I think Yahtzee mentioned it, the entire story feels like G.I. Jane crossed with aliens. With Alien.
Yes, I think that is extremely accurate. So yeah, otherwise, I guess the only other thing I'd like to say is that I started playing a game that I don't want to say that I regret it, but so one of the Let's Players I follow was playing a bullet hell platformer, anime style bullet hell platformer called Rabi-Ribi. I've heard this in the news previously. It's extremely anime-esque, and it looked like super fun. It's like a Metroidvania where all the bosses are like bullet hell style. It's almost like an anime Cuphead.
Okay.
And like when I watched him play the game, it looked pretty fun. But like as both of us, I bought it the same day his Let's Play series started, and we both were playing it in parallel more or less. And like the storyline is just like pandering anime dreck. Like I feel embarrassed. I'm mad this game plays as well as it does because there's no payoff whatsoever in the storyline. It's just fucking horrible. Like every storyline sequence makes me feel filthy. Like I'm watching him play and he had to apologize, and like
wow.
usually he does like voice acting and gives all the characters like really goofy voices, but like while he's playing he's just like hammering the X button as fast as it'll go just to get through the storyline sequences as fast as possible.
Is it wait, is it just awful as in this is like schlock badly, right? Or is it smut?
It's not quite smut, it's ecchi, but it's also really boring. Like the storyline has no purpose whatsoever but to give you a reason to go around, collecting and fighting anime girls. It's not even compelling. And like I'm kind of playing in the hopes that maybe at some point there'll be like a joke like Senran Kagura or something. It'll like just like revel in the fact that it's really skeevy. Or like I don't know, one of those games like Doki Doki Literature Club where the whole game will just get turned on its head all of a sudden. Yeah. But I'm not really expecting that to actually happen. So
it turns out it's an underrated classic because no one ever bothered finishing it, and like you're gonna be the guy who discovers this amazing.
It's only like a 2-year-old game, so I think I feel so maybe just it's just been hidden in the depths of history for this long.
Exactly. OldManStompy is gonna be the guy.
This is me.
I would like to recommend, if you like bullet hells, easy platformers, the 20XX. Just give it a
the Mega Man X.
Speaking of 20XX, somebody, I think again it was Dragon Ace, asked me if I was one of the people who kickstarted that game because one of the bosses is a plant monster called Lotus Prince of Leaves. And I was like, that's an amazing coincidence, but no. I was like, I wish. That sounds fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yeah, Lotus Prince of Leaves. It is. The answer is no, but that's kind of amazing.
Is someone going to Photoshop your face onto the most? Is it?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm okay with this. I want to get some of that royalty money. I want to make that 20XX bank.
Anyway, that was my week. Thanks for bearing with me. I think with that wrapped up, I think it's time for us to try some questions.
Yeah, so first of all, I want to address the question last week. Do any of you play tabletop RPGs? Do you have any interesting stories about them? That was a general ledger question. Fakafon had an answer to this. The last Pathfinder game he had, his monk attacks 6 times and rolls 3 critical hits. But unfortunately, his first attack is a critical failure, so that negates everything that comes afterwards. So it's like, son of a bitch. So it's just like, imagine what that looked like. It's just like, huh? Oh, like cool extra rolls that don't matter, buddy.
You kick your own foot out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 3 critical hits to yourself.
I heard similar stories in the basically the opposite, where like this simple little monk guy in Warhammer 40k killed some sort of demon priest or something or other with a knife by just rolling criticals all the time, and that basically gives you extra attacks. Mm-hmm. So you just stab.
Works for me. Actually, did you guys ever watch? Like, I think this predates YouTube. Did you ever see the the Flash cartoon of Knights at the Dinner Table?
Nope.
Something sounds familiar, but I don't.
It's a good time. It's just about people's just role-playing campaigns. It was a really long-running comic in, I think it was a gaming magazine of the same name, but there were some Flash cartoons of it, and one of them was just an anecdote where a guy rolls like several criticals in a row, and the DM's like, "Oh, this never happens. Okay, I'm gonna see what happens now." And like, it's embarrassing accident after embarrassing accidents where like a guy's crossbow bolt ricochets off something, hits his mage friend whose fireball therefore goes off in a crazy direction, blows up somebody else, and it's just like this hilarious disaster. It's pretty amusing. And just like the sketch ends with the whole table just giving the DM like the death stare. It was pretty great. I actually recommend looking it up. It's probably on YouTube at this point because I would not be surprised if it reported. But as for this week's question, this one is from Vakafon. Have you ever seen or played or read, a game, movie, book, whatever, where something that seemed very important was being set up but never paid off or was rendered pointless? This is not necessarily a red herring. It just might be like bad writing, or even just weird game mechanics. For example, in Secret of Mana, they make a big deal about the Mana Sword from the very beginning. So why would you ever change weapons, story-wise? Or in one of the Tekken movies, it's all about like those cyborg or enhanced humans, but the climax of the movie has nothing to do with like the main characters of the movie or the plot or anything like that. Like, so have you ever seen games that just didn't have this payoff? Like, I can think of kind of two examples. One of them being a sword thing. This is The Witcher 1 and The Witcher 2. At the end of The Witcher 1, you can get... I forgot how the name of the sword. It's this long name, and it might be Polish. But there's this sword that is a bitch to get. Like, if you're not using a guide, you're probably not going to get it. Because you have to go through all these steps, like, from basically the beginning of the game. But when you finally do get the sword, it's crazy. Like, it's the end game sword. And if you carry your save file over on the PC version, of course, because Witcher 1 was only on PC. So if you start a game of Witcher 2 with save data from Witcher 1 and you had that sword, then you start the game with it. But because it's a game starting sword, it's been nerfed like you wouldn't believe. So it's like, aw, so you actually want to switch it out like as soon as possible? And it's like, so is that guy over there, does that guy's sword... Like, is it better than mine? How is this possible? Like, it's just kind of funny that way. The other thing I could think of, this is a weird one. Like, this is really weird. Have you guys seen the anime movie Redline?
I did.
I haven't, but I know you talk about it a lot.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Brilliant. But there's this, like, it's all about racing. And that anime conveys speed like you wouldn't believe. And it's, like, hand-drawn and animated old school. It's not all CG, which is fantastic, with some obvious exceptions.
There's just a lot of false distortion.
Yeah, there are some obvious exceptions, but mostly this is hand drawn. Well,
I mean the whole art, like they convey speed through the perspective FOV.
Yeah. So this is all about racing, and like the big climax is the race is being held on this like abandoned planet, but what we didn't realize...
Not abandoned, it's an incredibly warlike planet.
Well, no, there's like nothing... Well, there's supposedly nothing on it, but that's the thing. It turns out there's like, secret military research operations going on over there, and these military organizations are like, oh shit, like we don't want them driving through our stuff. So like there's this one, like, so the climax is happening while other stuff is happening in the background, and there's this one weird science experiment called like Funky Boy. It looks like this big yellow gelatinous thing, and it eventually gets out and everyone's like, oh no, and it has this like crazy laser attack that's just blowing shit up, and all the racers are like, oh, okay, you gotta avoid that now, I guess. So they're just driving all around, and meanwhile this like the head of this military organization at some point during the race gets this crazy, I forgot what, like injection or stuff put on him or whatever. He's like, finally, I have this ultimate, unbelievable power, and he starts, like, shape-shifting. It's like, yes, finally! And then, like, he approaches Funky Boy, and they start, like, clashing with each other and melting on each other and stuff like that. And that's the last you see of him. Like, the race just continues, and, like, I don't know what the hell that was all about, but, like, it was so weird, because they start fighting. I'm like, oh, damn, so now we got, like, a B-plot? No. That was the end of B-plot, actually. Like, okay. Like, it was cool,
that
but
was an MAD, I think.
What?
I think that was an MAD, mutually assured destruction.
I guess, but it's just like they start fighting and no, we're done. We're actually, it's over. Like, we're just gonna go back to the race now. Like, and of course we're gonna go back to the race, but like that was weird. Like, all right, thanks. I still recommend the movie. The movie's insanely fun to watch, but like that was just a bizarre thing to do. I don't know. Mm-hmm. So you guys think of anything that didn't have payoff or was rendered kind of pointless?
Dracologist, what do you
got? Sort of this quietly dropped event. The only thing I can remember is from Dreamweb. I
that's old school.
not sure. Yes, I do want. I don't know. I really would like to see Weiss and Lotus play that game. So I don't know. Should I spoil something here?
If so, then no.
Like, well, when you ever get to it, but there is a moment where you're like, oh, this thing happened. Moving on.
Oh, okay, nice. Yeah. Oh, actually,
absolute supernatural, almost Lovecraftian things happen, and the hero is like, well, this happened. Shrug.
You just don't bother. Next. Actually, I'm also reminded of something else. Speaking of the Secret of Mana Sword, the Master Sword in like every single Zelda game, because there's always like one better sword.
Well, they've gotten a bit better about that like lately.
Oh, have they? The last one I played was Twilight Princess. I guess the Master Sword was still good in that game.
So yeah, the Skyward Sword is kind of the story of how the Master Sword comes to be, and like Wind Waker is that a little bit too. Like the Master Sword levels up into a better Master Sword.
Yeah, no, that's how you do it. Yeah, you get a better sword later, but it's the same sword. Like it awakens. Mm-hmm. That was really well done. But I'm thinking like in Link to the Past, there are two better swords. Right. In Ocarina of Time, there's the Bigoron sword. Like so, it's just like, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Also, you can reflect the evil wizard spells at him with the bug catching net. If you don't want to use the legendary sword of the hero, you could use a net.
And the fishing rod.
That was hilarious, and it actually works. And Ganon just looks at it like, and he's just distracted by it. It's
whoa! I haven't seen one of these in years.
Yeah, wow. I mean, he hasn't. He's been like locked away forever.
Yeah, but I mean that wouldn't normally stop you.
I know. Oh, a fishing hook.
Like, can you imagine the fucking Infinity War ending like that? Like, spoilers.
No, I mean, like, Guardians of the Galaxy kind of does that. The first one, sort of, with the dance.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a broad issue with like the Infinity Stones that like oftentimes the only weakness they actually have is that they're physical objects and you have to be touching them.
Well, like I have not seen Infinity War, so don't worry, no spoilers here. But what bugs me about that is like, from what I've seen, a lot of people are saying, oh man, Marvel is doing something that the series has never done before, and like, oh shit, get ready people, this is a big deal. But like, remember, whatever happens, this is Infinity War 1 of 2, so like, if anybody dies or anything, like, I think I've said this before, in the Marvel movies there are no stakes, because like, oh really? Do you think Iron Man is gonna win in Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie? Do you think he's going to win in his own premiere movie? But, like, with Infinity War, like, people are saying there are actually stakes. I still say there aren't, because in Part 2, just wave your magic Infinity Gauntlet and undo literally whatever damage you did.
So in Infinity War 2, there might be stakes, because that's the one time when you do...
Yeah, if somebody stays dead at the end of Infinity War 2, I will believe they're dead. But at the end of Infinity War 1, it might be traumatic to watch if somebody dies, but, like... Call me when Infinity War 2 happens, you know? Like, again, like, oh, actually that never happened. Boom, it's over. Like, I'm just waiting for that to happen. Like, I'm assuming it's not going to be that cut and dry, because that's, like, that's corny. I'm curious to see what they'll do, but, like...
Actually, kind of funny story. So last week I talked about the NXT match that got 5 stars.
Yeah.
At the day before WrestleMania. The heel in that match... has just I was curious like where the hell are they gonna go? That was one of the best matches the WWF has ever had. So the guy who lost that match, the heel, he started spoiling the Infinity War on Twitter.
What an asshole!
Like that's his heel move.
That is an actual heel move.
That is a heel move and a half.
It's kind of funny how much of a modern heel move that is.
That is really funny.
Like he wouldn't dare to do it on actual like live television, because I guess that would reflect really badly on the television.
Yeah, on the network. Yeah.
Yeah, but on Twitter, I guess everything's fair game.
That's pretty brutal. But I'm sorry, OldManStompy. I think I interrupted you. What were you going to say for your pointless, didn't matter thing?
Fuck you, too.
Well, you know what I mean for the question.
This is my segment. I've been waiting 45 minutes for this. To answer this question. Okay, I'm calm. So I can think of a couple of things. Like, one is a general thing that, like, it happens a lot in anime or manga when the either the anime ends because the manga isn't over yet, or the manga ends because it got canceled and they have to wrap it up like way before they were expecting to.
Yeah, Gantz did that.
Mm-hmm. So like I can think of Bleach. Like Bleach kind of set up Orihime to be like this really important character in like the final arc, because like they said a hint that her like healing powers are actually like undoing reality or like reversing time. But like she never really becomes important for the majority of the rest of the series. Like, she spends most of the time being kidnapped. Like because those arcs become ridiculously long by the end of the series.
That series is the epitome of wasted potential.
Mm-hmm. I remember like that's a fun series to watch like or read like all in one shot, but like reading it chapter by chapter is just agonizing. The other thing I can think of actually is a Magic the Gathering example. Where so in one of the most recent sets, so like they've gotten to trying really hard to learn how to tell a story through the cards.
Yes.
And so what they do is they have what's called story spotlight cards, and they tell you on the bottom what the order they're supposed to be in.
Oh.
And then they publish storylines on the website that you could read for free that like describe what's going on the cards. And so people will like look at the cards and try to figure out where in the storyline like each of these events happen. And so there's a character in one of the more recent sets called Vraska, who's a Gorgon. And there are like all these really cool scenes of her like riding a dinosaur and like turning somebody to gold, and like all these interesting cards that nobody could figure out where they went in the storyline. And we were like really excited to like have her go on this like stone turning dinosaur rampage, like just like her fucking version of being like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Magic universe. Just like beating the crap out of everybody, riding a T-Rex. And as it turns out, at the very end of the story, we found out that like all of these were memories implanted in her by one of the other protagonists.
So it was all just a dream.
She never actually. No, I mean we never actually got to see them in the storyline. They just showed pictures of it on the website where they published that part of the story, and they never even described it. They just said like these are things that she thinks that she did, you know, because her mind got wiped at the end of the storyline. I was like, that was the payoff of all these like really cool. Because these are good cards too. Like people are gonna play them and they're gonna want to know like, whoa, what's this character up to? But she didn't do fucking anything.
You know what that reminds me of? This isn't a case of pointlessness, but the box art for Chrono Trigger. Do you know where that came from?
No, I do. I mean, I kind of do, but like that's. I mean, the part that it depicts doesn't actually happen in the game.
No, right? What had happened was the game was still in development, and they sent Akira Toriyama. I think it was like a screenshot of something from like the alpha or the beta, and he so he basically drew an exact rendition of that. So as cool as it looks, it's just not in the game. I mean, it still is representative of the game. It's just that is not in the game.
That's like super common. I mean, it's rare because that was actually drawn by the original Japanese artist, but that's like super common in American box arts to have like art that just does not depict anything that looks like the game whatsoever.
And
if you want to,
also the title, the menu screen of Super Mario World, that level doesn't actually exist.
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, Dracologist. What were you saying?
Well, I just wanted to say that if you want to see hilarious disparities between cover arts, just look at the cover art, the European and the American cover art of Time Wars, I think, from Delphine.
I don't know that one.
I think it was Eric Chahi's, one of Eric Chahi's games.
I mean, like I could think of like Ico, because the American one is just a lame close-up of Ico's face, which tells you exactly nothing, and the European and Japanese art is like a small person next to a big building, and it's based on this awesome painter, and it actually is representative of the game, kind of.
Yeah. So, Minty Miss reminds me that Dark Souls 1 is like that with regards to the box art, that like the American box art is totally different.
Yeah, it's just a knight.
The Japanese box art, and it like doesn't really tell you anything about how much the game's gonna kick your ass.
And it looks just like the Demon Souls box art too. It's like a knight.
Just a knight. That's all.
Well, the funny thing is the Japanese Demon Souls, I think, is also just a knight, but he's like sitting on like a log or something and resting and just looking like, whew. So like he's dejected or out of breath for some reason, and then you play the game and you're like, oh, the entire game is the reason. But in Dark Souls, he's just like a guy glowing with soul energy, which, I mean, that happens kind of, but yeah.
I will say this happens a lot in like wrestling too, because they kind of write the storylines as they go, and sometimes like you're getting really hyped up for a match and then it just never pans out into anything because they maybe they tried it once at a house show and it didn't go very well, so you never see the payoff.
Oh no, how about this? Every One Piece episode title ever, where it's like Luffy versus Jinbei, and then like they'll throw a single punch and then be like, no, we shouldn't be doing this, and then the rest of the episode is something else. And it's like, well, thanks.
That's also a really famous wrestling trope where they say like, oh, we're gonna have these two superstars fight, and then they just get attacked backstage and you never get to see them fight.
Yeah, it's like, and that's a minority. That's like a second of the episode. Like there was a stand-up comedian who talked about this, where they have the drug commercials, where where the drug commercials where like the person's just cured, or like the casino commercials where it shows someone winning the jackpot, and on the bottom of the screen it says results not typical, and he's like, well, that's bullshit. You're advertising the thing that almost never happens. Like that would be like a commercial for McDonald's where somebody just like chokes to death on a burger, and it's like, this almost never happens. It's like, what are you doing? Like, you can't do that.
Where you happen to you walk into McDonald's and you're gifted the franchise by Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, wow, cool. Thank you, McDonald.
Yep.
But yeah, anyway, I think that covers the question though. Do any of you guys have any other things to input with almost red herrings, not quite red herrings?
No, I think that was a great question. Dracologist?
There are some inklings of memories, but I can't play it. I don't have played.
Yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. Like, I feel like I would remember more, except that the whole point of the question is that they didn't pan out into anything.
Exactly.
The only thing that I might be able to remember is like my raw disappointment.
Yeah, so like if it made you mad. Yeah.
Right.
I do have one. I have one more. Star Fox Dinosaur Planet. And like, unlike most people, I actually enjoyed the game for the most part, but like the final, like the payoff at the very end, whoa boy, was that disappointing. Because like the antagonist of the game is this dinosaur lizard creature called General Scales, and he's actually a badass. Like, he's legitimately intimidating. There's a part where you shoot fireballs at him with your rod, and he just grabs one of his own men, holds him in front of him as a a lizard shield, and like, I didn't expect that from like a Star Fox. Like, this guy's freaking fierce. And then the game, like, finally you're ready to fight him. Like, you're actually gonna fight him for real at the end, because you know how you encounter the final boss several times, but it's like cutscene only, and then they run away, right. And you're like, damn. So you finally get ready to fight him, and it goes to gameplay, and you're like, I'm fighting General Scales. And the moment you take a swing at him, there's two disappointing things about this. The first is the moment you take a swing at him, it goes into a cutscene where, nope, he's not the final boss. Like, Andros was inside him all along, and it's actually Andros, and you just don't fight General Scales. That was immensely disappointing. But the other thing, this slayed me, because I realized that when you swing at him, the cutscene kicks in. So I was like, what if you don't? What's the actual fight like? There is none. He walks toward you, and if you just stand there and let him, he'll just walk like into you, and he doesn't fight. Because they expect you to swing at him. It is cripplingly disappointing for such a cool enemy. I've heard this also
for the original Dead Space, that like the part where you're supposed to like, when you start Dead Space, you like run into this elevator and you're getting chased by an alien.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to like jam the elevator button to get away from the alien, but if you just stay there, it'll just like glare menacingly at you.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought to do that. It's the same thing for Star Fox as well, but like, you don't have like a reason to defend yourself against what you think is the final boss. Like, get out of here.
Right, like in Final Fantasy VII, if you do nothing in like the final fight against Sephiroth, like eventually he'll just attack you and you'll counterattack and beat him instead of like, because you're supposed to beat him by using,
the real fight's over, so
right.
Yeah, okay.
Just saying, like, it's the same kind of thing. You're supposed to use Omni Slash, and like, you feel like, oh, nothing will happen if I don't. He'll just stand there and stare at me. But no, he'll actually attack you and you'll counterattack. They thought of that. But it's like some of these things, they don't think of that. I guess the action games is a lot harder to plan ahead for that kind of like situation.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, I guess there's my super duper last thing then.
All right, awesome. That was a good discussion. Thanks for participating, and thank you to, let's look at the notes, to Fakafon for the question, of course. I should know who supplies most of our questions.
Yeah, Fakafon, General Ledger, Insane Buffoon. We got a few.
Yeah, I could have guessed, and I would have had like a 33% chance of getting it right or so.
Yeah.
But anyway, with that note, that's the show for this week. We want to thank all of our fans who contributed questions. Thanks, Fakafon, General Ledger, and Lotus listed all of them just now.
Please keep us. Fool Arcana. There's more.
Yes, I know, and there could be many more. Please give us questions.
Hey, nice segue.
It could be even you.
Yeah, it could be you, or point right to the camera. You.
That would be great if we had cameras.
Yeah. Well.
Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own on the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs up, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. But no, I guess not 5-star iTunes ratings on SoundCloud. That doesn't make sense. It helps us promote and spread
dick.
awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement keeps the show going. You can also catch us on Thursdays on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend our glorious leader as Vice the Bold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, Twitter, and Battle.net.
And wherever the hell else. He lists like 100 things. Just he's everywhere. It's fine.
Except on this podcast right now. Huh? Lotus?
that just got me, because like that was it. Just like, oh, like now it's your turn. So you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up at Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams like Zack and Wiki, or even selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, like Ori and the Blind Forest, which just finished, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And you can find me on Skype, Steam, and in the Discord. On Discord, you can also find me on the Discord channel, Lord of the Crocos World.
Nice. Can you spell that out?
Yeah, it Croco Squirrel, like CROCO Squirrel.
Awesome.
Yes, Croc or Squirrel.
Yeah, Lord Croco Squirrel.
Cool.
Yes.
And you can.
He's a cool dude.
Yep. And you can find me as OldManStompy on most major gaming and social media networks, except for Steam. Although I'll probably just be playing Persona 5, so don't bother me. Don't spoil it for me. I
Old
swear to
man
God.
curmudgeon.
And that's our show for this week. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Until next time, everyone.
Toodaloo.
Cheers.